into layers of the presence of the earth. Is it possible for us to open portals to other realms? I had an experience with a portal where it opened and I was able to see into another elemental realm and a Pleiadian dimension. Can you help me understand that?
Well, yes, of course. The Earth itself, the physical realm, will contain portals to other dimensions. So just because we're talking about the shells that belong to Earth specifically, doesn't mean that you cannot cross-connect to the shells of other civilizations or other dimensions as well. There are always areas on your planet that allow for more accessibility according to the collective belief system of how these vortices are arranged in the physical reality. So yes, it's possible to connect to other dimensions, other civilizations through portals and vortices from the physical shell.
Great. Psychedelic experience may open us up to perceive some of these beings that are in other dimensions. Any idea of which beings or which energy earth shell we're tapping into when we see other beings?
Well, it depends on the beings that you're seeing. Okay. You can just specifically be tapping into the elemental shell and seeing elemental beings. But if you tap into some of the other dimensions or civilizations that most of you are connected to, like Sirius, like Pleiades, and others, the idea then, of course, is that since you've made those energetic connections already to aid and assist and guide you in this life by downloading information and energy from them, then of course, they're also going to be accessible to you through some of the portals and vortices that exist in physical reality.
When shamans take a shamanic journey, do they travel to one of the shells of Earth? And are shamans simply interacting with their own energy projected within a different frequency or dimension?
You're always interacting with your own energy, no matter what level you're on. Remember, you have to create out of your own consciousness, out of your own energy, anything that you perceive or experience in what appears to be your reality. So you are matching frequencies of other dimensions, other realms, other people, other civilizations in order to experience them, in order to recreate your version of them in your reality. But again, shamans being practiced at changing their frequencies in order to be able to access different dimensions, can access many different kinds of things. It just depends upon what their intention at the moment is, what their purpose is for accessing a particular dimension or civilization or group of beings. So it will vary from time to time, but yes, the whole idea of shamanism is the practice of altering your frequency to match the frequencies of other realities, other consciousnesses, so that you can experience them and gain information and knowledge from them.
What's the relationship between the shells and the Akashic records?
The Akashic records are simply everywhere, in every level. The idea is, again, remember, the Akashic records are not a particular place. The Akashic records is simply an old-fashioned way of describing that information exists here and now from everywhere. So you can tap into the idea of information anywhere you are by simply matching the frequency of the information that you seek. So the Akashic records is not a particular place. It's accessible from everywhere because it is everywhere, because everything is here and now.
And are the 9 levels of consciousness you've spoken of before correlated in any way with the shells of Earth? And if so, can you explain more about that?
They're not correlated in the same way that we're now speaking of the shells of Earth. The idea of the 9 levels of consciousness are simply those that are relevant that you're tapping into in more and more rarefied realms of yourself to be able to guide yourself in physical reality. So they're mostly connected, mostly concerned with the experience of the physical shell, even though some of them are on the level of spirit, on the level of soul. But it's not exactly a one-to-one correlation. It's more like an parallel system that aids and assists you in guiding you in physical reality.
And does the future gray parallel Earth reality share the same shell structure as ours, or did their environmental crisis alter their shells? What ET species ultimately taught the grays how to cross dimensions, and did their intervention with the grays alter the Earth shell for the better?
There are some misunderstandings in the way the questions are being asked here. Remember that the Greys are mutated humans from a parallel version of Earth. They were already evolutionarily, technologically more advanced than your version of Earth. So they taught themselves how to tunnel into parallel realities because they were already much farther ahead in their understanding of the whole idea of parallel realities and the vibrations that would allow them to succeed in crossing from one to another more consciously. The idea, again, of calling it the future is, again, a little bit of a misleading concept. They're simply in a parallel reality that may be representative to some degree of what you would consider your future timeline to be, but they are their own timeline, and they are simply at a more advanced stage, or were, compared to the idea of the Earth at that time. So the idea of their own shells were similar to yours because they were a similar version of Earth. And the idea of going into the evolutionary path that they went into, altering, mutating themselves, realizing they had to access other parallel realities in order to access viable human DNA, certainly gave them different choices and allowed them to access different portions of the different shells that we have spoken of. They, again, by becoming a hive mind, required guidance from other beings, such as the mantis beings, to oversee the idea of the hybridization project, since they no longer had, at that point, individual initiative. So the mantis beings and the other overseer beings had to give them guidance in that way because they simply functioned as a hive mentality, which made them efficient enough to get the job done.
Okay, so this next question shifts over to some nature elements here. This person's hometown was hit by a Category 4 hurricane recently and was devastated. You mentioned about the Earth shifting to the different versions of parallel worlds last time. How will these natural disasters shift with the new version of Earth?
Well, again, it's not that the disasters themselves shift, it's that the new version of Earth contains different weather patterns, different climate conditions. So while it may appear from your linear space-time perspective that these kinds of climate experiences will begin to mitigate themselves, will begin to balance and correct themselves, it's not that they actually change. It's that you're simply shifting to another Earth that has different climate patterns that are something a little bit more balanced, something a little bit more along the lines of what you would prefer to experience.
So when you have a challenging experience like that, where your whole hometown is wiped out, what is the way of staying in a positive state when, most people would feel quite devastated by the loss?
Well, again, it's about learning the lessons of the experience. So, for a simplistic example, don't rebuild the same way. Build according to the changes. Allow yourself to realize the reasons why these climate shifts are happening, because of the destruction of the environment, the acceleration of the cycle by the addition into the environment of things that are not necessarily in balance with the environment. So learning these lessons will allow you to begin to shift to other versions of Earth, taking different kinds of actions, showing in your actions that you understand the lessons, and doing things differently is what will actually allow you to shift to two versions of Earth where you can experience things differently, where you can experience things in more balance. So the idea of constantly rebuilding the same way instead of building to what is necessary for the climate shift, well, You have a saying on your planet that insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. So don't do things the same way. Change what you do, make different choices. Allow yourself to flow with nature instead of constantly going against the grain. And you will begin to shift yourself to a version of Earth where the climate situation will be far more balanced over time.
Yes, one person was asking, what actions can we as individuals take on a day-to-day basis to help heal the earth? Are things like recycling and turning off electronics doing anything to help? And this ties in with previous things that you've mentioned, which is if we believe Earth needs saving, then it needs saving. So do we ignore suffering or take action and raise our vibration so that we can shift to a healthier Earth?
Taking action is not the ignorance of suffering. It is the positive response to the idea that you observe what appears to be suffering and that you take the positive actions to alleviate it. You don't do the same things over and over again. You do different things that are more positive, more constructive. You take the actions that are representative of a more positive reality, a more positive version of Earth. It's not about ignoring anything. It's about learning the lessons from what you are observing or experiencing. So the idea, again, is not to think that the Earth needs saving, because, again, there isn't just one Earth. You will never change the world you're on. You will shift to a different world, a different version of Earth. There still may be many people who will not learn these lessons. So there always has to be, if they're going to choose negative things, a more negative version of Earth that they can live on or that they can die on. So the idea, again, is not that the Earth needs saving, because there isn't just the Earth, one Earth. It's about allowing yourselves to learn to work together, collectively, form a new consensus, and act on that new consensus in a way that is already representative of the version of Earth that you would prefer to shift to. Thus, giving yourself the navigational ability to shift to that Earth through the physical actions that you take that are more representative of how someone more positive would respond to the ideas that they observe, like suffering and destruction. So again, don't keep doing things the same way. Do new things. Sasani collective vibration, and there may be a counterpart, Sasani being, who would be more than willing to channel through you, but it will not be personally me. I am coming through this channel only. But by allowing yourself to explore different states of being in channeling, in the gamma state in the brain between 40 and 100 cycles per second, you can attract whatever you need, information-wise or experience-wise. But one of the best ways to practice the idea of vocal channeling, if that's what you're referring to, is to surround yourself with a few people that are asking questions that they really, really need the answer to, because in a sense, they act like ground, like electricity going to a grounding mechanism. They, by asking those questions and needing to hear the answer, pull the information through you. So you can kind of get out of the way and not have to really pay attention to what's going on. Because if the information is just coming to you, you don't really have to go into a full channeling state. You can be more conscious of what's going on, receive the information, and simply deliver it on your own to people in your own words if you wish to. But to go into a full channeling state, it's always best to have people asking questions to pull the information through you. And also at the same time, you have to absolutely get out of the way in terms of your negative ego structure. You cannot care what you look like, how silly you sound, or whether you get any information for them at all. You have to just trust the way it unfolds and just keep moving forward. Remember, going into the channeling state is also for you as the channel to clear yourself out of all the things that you may need to let go of. So the process is not just for the information for the people asking questions, it's also for you to go through an experience that helps you evolve as well.
And I believe this person also asked how to interpret it when one notices slight discrepancies or inconsistencies in a channel. where it's a source that they otherwise entirely resonate with. What is the best way to sort through that without being thrown off of your faith or belief in or trust in a set of teachings?
All right. Well, first of all, you never have to swallow anything whole. You can decide what works for you and what doesn't in any discipline, including ours. The idea, of course, is that channeling in your reality is not, let's just say, a perfect mechanism. There may be misinterpretations, misunderstandings. There may be a lack of using your language in a way that you would understand it because you have different meanings and interpretations for things. The idea is that sometimes it can simply slip. The idea being that, again, it's not always focused in a perfect way. So there may be what you would call some mistakes here and there that would cause certain discrepancies. At the same time, always look into your own belief systems to make sure you're not coloring the information or misinterpreting the information in a way that you prefer it to be, rather than being open to what is actually being said to you. So you have to really take it on a moment-to-moment basis and just see if something doesn't hit you right. Examine yourself to make sure you're not the one making it go into a different state than you would prefer. At the same time, realize there will always be errors here and there that will creep in from time to time, because no channel is perfect. No channeling medium in that sense, energetically, will always maintain a perfect focus for a variety of reasons. And there are certain things that simply get misinterpreted and or interpreted in different ways than maybe the normal understanding of your world. There may be things that don't make sense now that will make sense later. There are a variety of reasons why things may seem to be a little off kilter from time to time.
Thank you. How might experiences of sexuality continue to shift and evolve as our consciousness evolves?
Well, in many different ways, perhaps, all the way up to what we experience now and beyond, where our activity sexually is no longer exactly physical, but more energetic, in the creation of energy bubbles that interlink, overlap, and create a third life within the overlap. So it's no longer the physical act that it used to be for us, that it still is for you. But again, as you open yourself up in a fourth density, higher vibrational way, you'll be clearer about the reasons for the idea of expressing sexuality, and they will all be more, in your expression, aligned with the positive vibration and less aligned with the negative vibration. You will know perfectly the reasons why you may experience the idea of sexuality, and they will all enhance your ability to evolve forward in the fourth density reality that you're creating.
In the last transmission, you said that our individual processes of transforming darkness and limitation within ourselves is getting us ready for a larger collective project doing the same thing.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that and what is coming up in that regard, and what will transforming darkness and limitation look like on a larger collective scale?
No, it's premature. We will address it when it is the time to address it.
Okay. How did you come up with the discovery of shifting from parallel reality to parallel reality at Planck time frequency, each reality being totally distinct from the others? Are there any indications that this is our ordinary real life experience and you were able to figure that out without labs or complicated computations?
Yes, as we evolved and as we followed our version, our understanding of what we've shared with you called the formula, you raise your frequency in specific ways. And those specific ways extend your senses in specific ways. And those specific ways allow you to actually start to view the structure of existence and how it's actually functioning on different levels. So we simply suddenly became aware of parallel realities in a very tangible way and started becoming more aware as we evolved in the momentum that we created for ourselves of all of the different specific increments that go into allowing physical reality to work the way it does. So it was really a matter of opening up our senses to the point where it became obvious to see things and the structure of existence in a very particular way. And then things simply became as obvious to us as certain things are obvious to you, such as, again, by analogy, if you're holding a red rose and I ask you what the color is, you would simply say red. That's not a philosophy. It's not an opinion. You simply have the ability to see the red color. So the idea is we are giving you the experiences of our observations of what has become obvious to us by the expansion and increase in our sensory abilities to perceive through the barriers and the frequencies that create other realities.
So with the idea that there are many parallel realities and many versions of Earth existing simultaneously,
yes,
how then does each version of me relate to each other? Does this mean my soul copies into many souls?
Not copies, but each version has its own soul, its own higher mind. Again, remember, you're actually shifting to a completely different reality that has its own beingness. It has its own soul, its own purposes. And therefore, it's not that you're copying the soul, but it is dynamically interacting with every version simultaneously, whether you're aware of it or not. So all of the personalities are dynamically and energetically interacting like some gigantic internet. The idea being then that you're simply shifting focus along that interconnected web to experience the idea that you're changing billions of times a second into different versions of Earth or other parallel realities.
Okay, and this person says, I get confused about who is inside of me. I see times when I meld with the ego self, and that leaves me feeling disempowered and fearful. And I see times that I meld with the higher self, which leaves me in a state of empowerment. Who is it? Who is the I doing all this melding?
It is your core identity as an individual reflection of all that is. That never changes. You can experience a number of perspectives, but you're always going to experience it as you. So even when you're a spirit, even if you go to the level of the oversoul, even if you go to the level of all that is itself, you experience that as those things from your point of view. You never lose that particular perspective because you're one of the reflections, one of the ways that all that is has of experiencing itself. So the experiences you're having of disempowerment or empowerment is all happening because you are making choices to buy into certain ideas that then create those experiences. But no matter what the experience, it will always be being experienced by your perspective, which is you as a reflection of all that is, a unique one.
You mentioned that the Sasani are your version of the Wraith, the 5th level of mastery, and that's from the Willa information.
Yes, because we exhibit traits of both physical and spiritual beings. So we are close to the idea that is being expressed in that work that is represented by the stage of the mastery called the Wraith. Similar, not identical, but similar.
So what levels of mastery do the Yael and Shalana or Shayael embody, and are any of them at the Wraith level?
Mostly no, because they have to interact with you in a more physical way. So it's not necessarily their purpose to go into those levels until later on in their evolutionary path. They maintain a certain kind of physicality that will be more vibrationally compatible with humans on Earth when certain changes happen, of course, so that they can present the hybrid children to you and help them learn to live among you. So it's not necessary for everyone to go through those different levels of mastery in any way, shape, or form for them to serve the primary purpose that they've chosen to express.
What do hybrids and grays eat, and will their food practices be brought to Earth? Are there foods that they can eat that humans can't, and vice versa? And if your craft is a living being, are there foods that it enjoys consuming and what sorts of things does it like?
Well, I'm going to joke with you a little bit and say that it enjoys a light meal because really all it's doing is absorbing light, electromagnetic energy in a variety of forms. We no longer eat. We used to, but we've evolved beyond that. However, the Greys evolved to a point where they ingested mostly liquids. The Shalanaya, the children that will come to live among you, will retain the ability to eat physically, but it'll mostly be similar to either vegetarian or vegan diets, as you understand it, and would probably be even simpler in terms of the choices of food that they choose, even out of those diets.
But the question has come up when I'm trying to spread this knowledge to others. What if the excitement isn't necessarily positive? So, for example, a violent person may find excitement in harming others. A racist might find excitement in harming someone of this particular race for no other reason than that they exist. A bigot, et cetera, et cetera. Or somebody that wants to sleep with a best friend's partner or like a relative's partner. They may feel very excited about this, but I assume that this is obviously different from what you're teaching with the heart's excitement. So how do we differentiate between what is the excitement we should follow? I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
You are using the term excitement in a very loose way, because the idea of someone doing harm to another is not actually following their excitement, even though they may call it such. You have to have the ability to discern the difference between excitement and anxiety. And just because someone is going through anxiety and acting out on anxiety and calling it excitement doesn't make it so. Excitement, by definition, is a positive path. That's how we're defining it. Excitement, passion, so on and so forth. The idea is to simply understand that if they are doing the definition of mechanical negativity, segregation, separation, diminishment, control, then these are not synonyms for excitement, because excitement has a positive definition. They are equal to anxiety and fear, and you have to recognize the difference whether they do or not.
Hi, hello, Bashar.
Good day, good day.
Wow, it's so joyful to feel your energy.
And yours as well.
I was in a very joyful state in the end of 2020, and I almost popped out of the physical dream, and yes. I felt that I cleared all my karma, but by
Remember what we said about karma.
Oh.
Karma is not the idea of building up negative energy. The idea is to simply take actions that course correct you back into alignment with your true self.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you.
Yes.
And then, however, I made some decisions that maybe I met with somebody whose vibration maybe is incompatible with me. We met each other physically, very close to each other, and I felt that my energy almost broken up into pieces. Yes. And I had a really challenging year in 2021. But
congratulations.
Thank you. And by your help and by many beings' help, yes. Because I was in a multi-dimensional state, beyond the time and space state.
All right. Well, you always have help. You always have help.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And every time I see your title of your new transmission, I started healing myself automatically, and I feel much better now.
All right.
And but I found that till now I still have some challenging on meditating. And when I wake up at night in the dream state, there are so many dreams, maybe bad dreams, and some emotions still coming up.
Yes.
So,
Well, you may be working things out in the dream state.
Oh, okay.
Would you rather work them out physically?
I don't know. I'm just wondering if I can do something, if I really need to do something now to rebalance the energy faster, or is there anything I can do to help to rebalance the energy now?
Are you familiar with what we have shared with all of you called the formula, and are you following it as precisely as you possibly can?
Oh yes, of course I'm familiar with the formula, but maybe not precisely, that much precisely.
Why not?
Um,
Is there something you're afraid of discovering within yourself?
I'm just wondering how to express myself, how to express my love and my emotion more accurately.
Well, are you acting on your passion in life? Are you acting on your passion in life?
Yes, as much as I can now.
Well, what makes you think you're falling short of expressing yourself? How would you like to express yourself that you're not doing? Can you describe the difference? Can you give us an example of what it would be like to express yourself more fully as opposed to what you're now doing?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes when I communicate with people, maybe I can communicate with them in a more friendly way. But sometimes I get into my fear state.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. You have fears that you haven't let go of because you haven't discovered the beliefs behind why you're holding on to them. So you need to do more self-investigation to find out why you're choosing to hold on to those beliefs, why you think you need to do that instead of letting them go. That's the process that will help you let go of them and not be afraid to find them so you can let go of them. And then there will be no negative belief systems in you for you to have a fear reaction in your communications with others. You understand?
Oh yes.
Well, then that's using the formula more precisely if you do that. And it will help you let go of those negative and fear-based beliefs. But first you have to discover why you're holding on to them. Remember, you don't hold on to anything that you don't believe serves you. So if you have a negative belief within you that is making you believe that holding on to that negative belief is actually a better alternative than letting it go, you will always hold on to it until you understand that there is nothing to be afraid of in the better alternative. So dig down and investigate those beliefs. Listen precisely to what they are telling you. Listen to the story that the belief is telling you and realize it's nothing but a story, that you get to decide what works for you, and you don't have to buy into what the negative and fear-based belief is telling you you should be believing in. So do that work and it will help you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
And there is an example. For example, if someone is keep telling me you can never win, and maybe I'm absorbing your energy, how do I respond to that person?
How do you believe that? Why do you believe that? Why do you believe what they're saying?
It's totally nonsense.
Well, then act like it's nonsense.
Yeah, but I just felt a little bit sad that he would say that.
Why are you sad? Then that means you're buying into the energy. If a stranger, if a total stranger walked up to you on the street and said those things, would you pay them any attention? No, because they don't know who you are. Just because you know someone doesn't mean you can't react to them or respond to them as if they were a stranger when they say something you know has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own fears. They're just projecting it on you because they're afraid to look within themselves and let those things go. So if you know that and can view them that way, you won't react to what they're saying in any sad or negative way, because you will know that they're just working on their own issues, even though they may be projecting them on you. And therefore you can simply feel compassion for them and understanding for them and not sadness for them. See them as powerful beings and allow them to work through their own issues. Don't see them as something sad, or you're depriving them of being reinforced in the positive direction. All you're doing is reinforcing the negativity that they're already experiencing within themselves that they're afraid to look at, and that's why they project those things on you. Make sense?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes.
All right.
And one last question. I'm wondering, how do you use your body as a light bulb spaceship to shifting between dimensions?
It's a matter of changing the frequency to match the frequency of a different dimension, which our ships can sense.
Oh.
Remember, our ships are intelligent. They are solidified projections and light projections of our own higher minds. So they're connected to multiple dimensions already and can tell the difference vibrationally in frequency between one and another.
Oh, okay. So the body is really not, it does not belong to a certain dimension. The body will have a different frequency in different places.
Yes, exactly so. And a different way of seeing and perceiving it. Yes.
Okay. So I'm just learning more about the body, the essence of my body.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Have fun. Thank you. Good day.
Good day. Thank you very much.
One of the beings, if possible. I'm open to the idea, and I think it would be a great opportunity if I can have a close contact or come in contact. I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it. Is good to meet you, Bashar, and she's the best.
Well, obviously, we are having contact right now in this particular format, but we understand what is meant. But again, there's a timing to these things that's appropriate not only for the individual, but for the all, for the collective. So again, we would simply suggest that you do your best to follow the formula, and remember that acting on your passion means acting to the best you are able to act, which means if you can't do a certain thing that you're excited about, then it's telling you that it's not necessarily the appropriate timing for that expression, but you can act on other things you are able to act on. So do so, and you will accelerate the process of being able to be ready in vibrational states that are appropriate for open contact to happen face to face with other kinds of beings. As we say, we will be giving you other permission slips, other exercises having to do with the idea of increasing the probability of contact when we go through the transmissions of the window, the door, and the gate. So that may be of assistance to you as well in the upcoming months of your 2023 year.
Hello. Hi. First, I want to say thank you for the synchronicity of talking with you.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
Thank you. So, I'm curious to know about a couple experiences I've had.
All right.
I made some homemade tincture and
Of what?
THC.
All right.
And I laid down to take a nap, and I thought that I fell asleep because I felt my entire body vibrating, and it was very intense but very pleasurable. I thought I was asleep. My bed felt like it was levitating on an angle with the head raised higher. And it felt like I was in warm water. It felt like somebody was behind me and wrapping their hand around my waist. And eventually I got up because I thought that I peed my bed. But it turns out that, my bed was dry, and when I looked at my watch to see how long I was asleep, it didn't detect any sleep. And then I had another similar experience where it felt like something externally again was pushing up from my root chakra, and it again was very pleasurable. So yes. I'm wondering what these experiences could have been.
they're preparation states for altered states, fuller altered states that you may achieve later on. It's preparing you and allowing you to get used to certain higher frequencies so that you can more smoothly transition into higher altered states later on.
Okay.
Do you understand?
So was that my own body, or was that another entity?
There are other entities involved peripherally to some degree, but what you are experiencing is your own energy going into altered states, higher frequencies.
Okay. And also, I had come across a YouTube video from Rob Gauthier, the ET
Yes.
Whisperer,
Yes.
how to channel class, and I was doing one of his exercises, and I saw an entity, a being. He appeared to be male, with bluish gray skin and bluish gray hair. He seemed to have a flat affect, no really emotional. He didn't look like emotional at all. He appeared to be like a warrior type, not in a negative way, but just like a warrior type. I'm wondering, did I happen to see somebody that was not reaching out to me, just because I didn't have any specific, person in mind that I was trying to connect with? I just was seeing.
You are experiencing one face, one aspect in symbolic form of your own higher mind.
So is that another entity from like another dimension?
Your higher mind, your spirit self on the higher level. One aspect of it. Yes, but not you, the physical person only. A bigger representation. Remember that you are in spirit right now. You never leave spirit. That's your natural state. So what you were seeing is a portion, a representation, just one representation of a multifaceted level of your own being in the spirit world.
Were they trying to communicate with me, or
they did communicate with you? Because the things that you picked up are aspects you contain.
Ah, I see. Are they located anywhere? Where are they located?
On a different plane, here and now, different frequency. In again, the same way that two television programs are located in the same space, but you only see one at a time based on what you're tuned to. All spirit is here. It's just a different frequency, different channel, if you wish.
And does this entity have a name?
It's up to you to determine what you wish to call your own higher mind. Remember, this is you. You keep referring to it as this entity. It's not separate from you. This is, you are an aspect of it. You are a projection of it. It is reflecting qualities to you that you contain, even as a physical being.
Okay. And
use them in life. Go boldly forward.
Okay. And I feel like somebody or something has been trying to connect with me.
Did we not just talk about it?
Yes, you did.
All right. Don't separate what is not separated in terms of a question. It is all the same thing that we're talking about here.
Okay.
Your higher self is showing you and giving you opportunities to make a stronger, aware connection with it so that you can move forward in life more fully as your true self, acting on your passions.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Aveo.
Hi, Bashar. This is Teresa. Can you talk about scapegoating? Why does scapegoating happen within a family? And what should a person do if they've been scapegoated their whole lives, not to be socially marginalized? I grew up the scapegoat within my family, and I still have great difficulty feeling connected to other people, even in my old age. Thank you for all that you've done for me.
where it is a badge of strength that you chose to be strong enough to, in a sense, take on the fears and lack of responsibility that other people have when they are not willing to look at their own issues and simply choose someone to foist them all and project them all upon. So it's a badge of strength that you were willing to do this for them, but you must reflect, if you are to be true to yourself, the idea that rather than continuing as a scapegoat, it's possible for you, though they don't have to accept it, that you can return information to them that allows them the opportunity to face their own fears and not foist them off on you, to allow them to take responsibility for their own negative and fear-based belief systems that they are simply unwilling to face, which is why people create scapegoats, because they fear the responsibility, because they define it as blame, and they are coming from a place of less than worthiness, and so on and so forth. But you have decided to be strong enough to play the part that allows them to use you, in a sense, as an excuse to not face themselves. But you don't have to continue to do so if you can respond appropriately, that puts them in touch with the idea that they need to look at themselves and their own issues if they really wish to expand in life. But that means you can go on without feeling like a scapegoat or experiencing the effects of being one, if you take the responsibility to reflect to them what it is they are actually reflecting to you about their...
And by that logic, could there be 100 versions of me, all in the same reality at the same time?
The short answer is yes, it's a possible experience. We can't say that it's necessarily a probable experience for most individuals, but there are ways in which you do connect to parallel reality selves to inform the life that you are living in this particular reality or timeline. We will go into more detail about parallel realities in the next future transmission, which we will call Parallel Realities and You. But that will be upcoming in what you call your future, which is another parallel reality.
Hello, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect. And you?
Excellent.
All right. What would you like to discuss?
I was in Egypt a few months ago, and I saw many interesting, mysterious things. One of them was the Serapeum at Saqqara. It's an underground structure that has 24 huge sarcophagi made of granite, and each of them is about 70 tons in weight. I'm just curious, who made these sarcophagi and what were they used for?
Some things have been used for the idea of coffins, but only after the life. During the life, they're used to provide a vibrational chamber that allows for more efficacy and more probability at having out-of-body experiences and gaining knowledge on the spiritual realm.
Interesting.
They are created with ancient knowledge from Atlantean times, which goes back even further in their encounters with extra-dimensional beings, where they got some of that knowledge, but in their own out-of-body explorations also gathered the knowledge that they then passed on to the Egyptian and many other cultures after the destruction of Atlantis by the survivors.
Mm-hmm. So were they built around the same time as the Great Pyramid?
Some of them were, and some of them are later, but eventually the knowledge was lost.
Okay. And the new chamber that was discovered in the Great Pyramid, what was its purpose?
It added to the resonance of the Great Pyramid as a resonating chamber. There are certain kinds of ratios and relationships between those chambers in the Great Pyramid that enhance certain frequencies that allow for higher probability of experiencing both out-of-body and higher mind meditational experiences. And also provide resonance for different forms of energy that the ancients also were able to siphon off of the intact pyramids, which it can only now deliver partially because the pyramid is not completely intact. But it also created certain kinds of vibrations that could be transformed into certain forms of energy, including electricity, which the ancients were capable of using to a limited degree.
Okay. Are there other chambers in the Great Pyramid that will be discovered in the future?
Yes.
Okay. And I have a question about Atlantis. In 2001, a sunken city was discovered off the west coast of Cuba at a depth of about 2,000 feet. Was this an Atlantean colony?
Yes.
And how did it sink so low?
Well, you have to understand that the waters of the ocean rose a lot. So not only were there seismic tremors that allowed certain portions of their colonies to sink, the oceans also rose because of the ice caps melting.
Okay. And what was the name of this city and what was it known for?
It was mostly a trade city, an agricultural city. One moment. Its most ancient name was Kakara. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Did it sink at the same time as the main city of Atlantis?
In portions over periods of time. But again, it's not just that it sunk. Remember, the oceans rose because of the ice melt. But the main tsunami that wiped out most of the main portion of Atlantis and some of its colonies came from a cometary impact into the Atlantic Ocean. That's what caused the main destruction.
Okay.
Then, because of the climate change that occurred after the impact and the idea of the great floods that occurred because of the ice melts and the tsunamis, then over time the oceans rose.
Yes. Okay. Another question is it true that 3,000 years ago in India, people had anti-gravity technology and flying craft?
A few of them did, yes. Not everyone. It wasn't absolutely common, but a few of the upper echelons and priestess level did.
So what happened to that technology? How did it get lost?
It was forgotten over time because many of them were used for destructive purposes and many of them were actually destroyed, and the information as to how to rebuild them was long gone.
Mm-hmm.
They were more ancient craft that were sort of handed down, but the means of perpetuating them and maintaining them had already been lost. That information does still exist in ancient scrolls you haven't yet discovered that are buried.
Yes, they talk about the Vimanas.
Yes.
And when will we have anti-gravity technology again on Earth?
The highest probability is at least sometimes within the next 30 to 50 years in the way that you're describing it. It can be sooner in terms of borrowing it from other cultures after open contact, but you yourselves will generally understand the concept and be able to manufacture certain forms of those crafts within the next few decades of time at the most. Now, you could have had it already, but certain events transpired on your planet to prevent the people from being born who would have created the idea you're calling anti-gravity, which is not exactly anti-gravity, but we understand what you mean. It's more resonant relocation. It's more resonant space-time relocation is what you're referring to as anti-gravity. It's not really anti-gravity.
So those people were born in a different timeline and not in ours?
Yes, because of certain events in your timeline that prevented their birth, such as wars and so on and so forth.
I see. And is there a concern in your society that if we get this technology now, it may be used for the wrong purposes?
It is not a concern. It is simply a recognition that you may use it for negative purposes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
All right, we thank you. Our deep appreciation and Aveo.
Aveo.
Hello, Bashar. You said the definition of abundance is the ability to do what I need when I need. So it's not about what I want, but what I need. Could you please clarify these two terms? Because I can imagine I know what I want, but I don't know what I need. And also, if I know what I need, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's supposed to be comfortable. So where is the place for joy? How the excitement and passion is related to this? Could you please clarify that? Thank you.
Well, first of all, we make the differentiation between what you want and what you need, because sometimes what you want can be an ego structure desire that isn't necessarily aligned with what you truly need in life for your joy, for your comfort. And you must watch your definitions, because when you say that what you need might not give you joy, that's a contradiction in the true definition of what you need. Because if you get what you need, it will always be comforting and always give you joy, because you will feel fulfilled by getting what you truly need. Whereas asking for what you want and receiving what you want will not always allow you to feel joy and happiness, because what you want, again, might be coming from a negative place in the ego that may or may not be really aligned with the idea of what you truly need that will give you fulfillment. So the idea is the 7 basic needs in life, as we have said, for physical thriving are that you need air, you need water, you need sleep, you need food, you need the idea of some form of shelter or pleasant environment that is life-supporting. You need the idea of connection or relationship to something, whether it's another human or not is not the point. And you need the idea of self-expression, your creative expression, in other words, that which dovetails into following your passion. If you are fulfilled in getting the air, the food, the water, the sleep, the idea of shelter, the idea of connection, the idea of expression of your true self, you will be fulfilled, and that will give you joy. What you want can sometimes coincide with what you need, and that's fine if it does. But the idea is to have a definition of attracting what you need, which are simple, basic things that everyone needs to thrive in physical reality, and those things will always make you feel fulfilled. So that is the basic difference, is to allow yourself to want what you need, and you will always be fulfilled.
At remembering in the present the actions of their future selves, so as to avoid any potentially regrettable futures for their present selves. I hope that makes sense. Thank you very much. That is all. Good day.
Well, first and foremost, you're defining the idea that if you're actually in the